Hi everyone. As you could most likely tell, I have not published a video for over 2 weeks now, and I can only apologize for that. Last week I actually started writing the script for my next big video, but sporadically I caught a cold. The constant coughing, the runny nose, all of it. My eyes were even constantly watering and it made script writing a real pain. Thankfully I have almost recovered, and in the meantime I've been able to spend more time with my script writing. My next few videos are going to be quite long and for really good reason, I assure you. And a few videos down the line, I really want to rip this movie into tiny pieces. So that's the update, but don't leave just yet. I personally am not too much into update videos. They give you the update, which is nice, and then you're left waiting for the content creator to start creating the promised videos over a period of days. So I'm going to do something that has most likely never been done in a channel update video before. I'm going to give you 3 mini reviews of some stuff that caught my interest recently, and hopefully that will give you something to enjoy whilst you're waiting for my usual videos. So let's get started with the new Logan trailer. Now the previous trailer made the movie look a little boring to me. There was a lot of shots in the desert that had beautiful cinematography, but there is only so long you can stare at the desert, so that was a big concern for me. After watching this trailer though, I am glad to say that the movie looks a lot more interesting. A big contributing factor to this is that Logan has Xavier to talk to, and that alone makes for much more interesting conversations and dialogue as opposed to the previous Wolverine movies where he's talking to nobodies. And yeah, the little girl they got to play X-23 is awesome. This is the first movie she's in and she's doing an unbelievable job. Her facial expressions, her aggressive movements, she's doing it all extremely well. Initially I was afraid that she was only going to be there as a tool so Wolverine can constantly come and save her, but thankfully that isn't the case. It seems more like she is the wild animal and Logan has to tame her, and it looks like that is going to be a very interesting dynamic to see unfold as the movie goes on. And having Xavier spectate is another added bonus. Here's hoping he gets to take part in changing her as well. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, the blood. I thought this movie was going to be a regular R, but it actually looks like it's going to be a hard R. What's really impressive about the gore though is that if you pause it, you can actually see some details like this guy's throat being ripped out. I'm especially impressed because you don't usually get this much detail from CGI blood, but here it just looks so brutal. That being said, I hope you also see people's limbs flying off as well. Because as cool as it looks in these couple short seconds, it will get boring if we see this exact same CGI blood squirt over and over again. They need to incorporate some variety. I also hope there are more action scenes. The director of this movie, James Mangold, directed The Wolverine, and that movie only had 3. It really felt like he wasn't bothered shooting much action, and with the statements he has been making over the last few months, it does sound concerning. Seeing as this is Hugh Jackman's last movie as Wolverine, they really need to pull out all the stops here, and if this is the first movie that intentionally is going to incorporate the blood like we always wanted, then they better be sure to make the most of it. So that's my thoughts on the trailer. The movie looks awesome, and I hope it is a great send-off for Hugh Jackman. Alright, now let's talk about something I previously gave my impressions for but never reviewed, and that is Batman Return to Arkham. For those of you that don't know, I published a first impressions video of the game where I talked about the pros, cons, and its frame rate problems, particularly with Arkham City. I never did publish a review the week after because I wanted to give the developers more time to patch the frame rate problems with an update. So I waited a few weeks and they released an update. Did the update fix the issues with the frame rate? No, it did not. In fact, instead of fixing the frame rate and making it run at a stable 40 to 60 frames per second, the developers instead reduced and locked it to 30 frames per second. As a result, installing the update for Arkham City only made the game worse. Let me demonstrate. Look at this 60 frames per second gameplay clip. It's nice, fast, and fluid, isn't it? And now look at the patched 30 frames per second gameplay. Not only does the game look choppy, but it does not even stay at a consistent 30 frames per second. It actually drops below 20 frames at times, and this is a big problem because I can't get my high combos anymore because the drop in frame rate really messes with your concentration. So many gamers have been reporting the frame rate issue on the developers forums and they have not even given us a response. In fact, I am sure that they are well aware of this, because if you look at the update log for the patch, look at what they say. Fixes game crashes reported by some players. Some players! I experienced so many crashes with Arkham City. Even my little brother who was playing this game told me that the game crashed on him at least twice every time he was playing. Even online reviews on Amazon and YouTube have people complaining about the game crashing, and the developers have the nerve to say that only some users experienced these issues. And believe it or not, but it actually gets worse. It also says that they added additional frame rate and performance optimizations. How the hell is this improving the frame rate? It's not, it's just made it worse. In fact, even the controls have become worse. They actually have a half a second delay whenever you press a button or use the analog sticks. That makes the game feel very unresponsive, and it is shocking that they released this update and called it a fix. My final verdict on this game, guys, is not to get it. I am a huge fan of the Arkham games, and even I am not recommending it. However you think the game might look by watching this video, it's actually worse when you play it. You can feel that there's something really wrong with the gameplay when you try to control it. In fact, the game is so unplayable that I'm actually going to return it. I'm going to contact Amazon and say that the developer released an update which broke their own game, and I'm going to get a full refund. If you feel the same way about the game, then I recommend you do the same thing. This game gets a 1 out of 10. How dare they release the game with all these problems after various delays, and then once they have our money, they decide to break the game with an update, because they think it's too late and that we can't get our money back now. I have 2 words I desperately want to say to these dirty developers, but I am not going to compromise my morals just because of these scumbags. They can piss off for all I care. Okay, and finally, let's talk about Sherlock Series 4, because I need to talk about something that will cheer me up. So I'm going to do quick reviews of the 3 episodes here, otherwise we can literally be here all day. So episode 1, I thought the pacing of this one was a little off. The dialogue was perfectly fine, but it felt like it was being spoken at a much faster rate. I wasn't able to fully process what was being said before they moved on to the next line. Regardless, I loved all the comedic elements in this episode. Benedict Cumberbatch really shows that he is an expert at comedic delivery and timing, something that he lacked in Doctor Strange because the jokes weren't funny and his unnecessary American accent really sucked all the funny out of him. Anyway, this episode was a lot more about Mary and I really enjoyed it. My major problem with it though was the last 10 minutes. There was nothing wrong with the writing, it was the directing. This was supposed to be a really emotional scene and I felt nothing. That's what made me feel really annoyed with this episode, as the director really didn't showcase any passion for this project. Even Sherlock's cliff notes were just crammed into the screen without any structure. So yeah, this episode was good, but it could have been great if a better director was assigned to the project. But what do you expect when you hire the director of Tank Girl? This episode gets a 7 out of 10, which is the lowest score I have given to a Sherlock episode. So, episode 2. There was a lot of mystery and uncertainty throughout this episode, and seeing Sherlock fall apart both through comedy and legitimately concerning circumstances was a joy to watch. Things really get serious though when Watson gets furious at Sherlock, and that's where things really take a turn for the worst. I can't say much more than that without getting deep, and as I said before, I will be here all day if I started to do that. Overall, this episode was awesome, and it gets a very strong 8 out of 10. And finally, episode 3, the final problem. This is a very personal episode for Sherlock, and quite frankly, it's one we have been waiting to see for a long time as it answers many of our questions. Now, this episode seems to be getting a lot of mixed reviews, and I gotta disagree with the negative ones. People say that Euros has mind-controlling powers like Kilgrave from Jessica Jones, and that is a completely wrong comparison to make. Kilgrave will look at you and tell you to shoot yourself and you would do it. Euros has to psychologically get into your head using various techniques, and you clearly see her attempting to do this to Sherlock. This episode even answers many of the questions we have had in regards to Sherlock's past, and the way they brought it all full circle, I think, was done ingeniously well. I was talking to my friends about it and we were blown away with all the links and connections it made to previous episodes, including the Abominable Bride episode, which I didn't expect them to do as that was a one-off special. The writers must have planned this from the very beginning when they wrote the very first episode because it all connects so well. And if this was to be the very last episode of the show, I think this is a great send-off. That being said, don't make this the last episode. I really want to see more. This is one of those episodes where I can literally talk about it all day as it is so deep and clever. The final episode of Sherlock Series 4 gets a 9 out of 10. And the season as a whole, I would say, gets a 9 out of 10 too. If you haven't seen it, then I strongly suggest that you do, as Sherlock has been, and still is, one of my most favourite shows ever made. So that's it for the channel update and my 3 mini reviews. I'll be publishing these on my channel separately for those that might miss this video, but a big thanks must go to all of you who have stopped by and watched. And thanks for your patience, guys. I guarantee you will all love the next video I make, as it will open the gates for a bunch of other follow-up videos. Until then, guys, I'll catch all of you next time. Take care.